Okay. Hey, what the hell are you doing? Hey, are you crazy? Pull me in! Pull me in!
After filming Enter the Dragon, Lee is now ready to complete the film that will embody his greatest message, a film Lee calls The Game of Death.
I believe that this background of research and the building of a philosophy of Jeet Kune Do is what Bruce intended to relate through The Game of Death. He had an idea of how he wanted to show the martial arts to the viewing public. These various steps in finding your own way in martial arts, the different styles and what styles mean, and more importantly, what they don't mean. That was Bruce's big message, the style of no style. And Game of Death was going to be the platform for these expressions.
While we may never know how the film would have turned out had Bruce Lee lived, we do know with unimpeachable certainty the vision that he had for the movie during the time he was filming its finale. According to Lee's 12-page storyline, he would play a retired, undefeated martial arts champion by the name of Hai Tien, who had been approached by members of the Korean underworld to take part in a daring raid on a 5-story pagoda said to contain a valuable treasure on its uppermost level. When he refuses to participate, his sister and younger brother are kidnapped, leaving him no option but to take part in the raid. At a briefing at the boss's home, Hai Tien is introduced to his accomplices in the raid, all of them highly trained martial artists. The boss screens a reconnaissance film of the temple area, explaining to the accomplices that since guns are prohibited in the village, the pagoda is guarded by martial arts mercenaries, one on each level of the pagoda. Their instructions are to fight their way to the top of the pagoda and retrieve the treasure. Lee selected the Buddhist temple of Pope Jusaw as the setting for the film. The temple's most striking object, the 33-meter-high Buddha statue, is clearly indicated in Lee's storyline sketches. Cast in one mold with 150 tons of bronze, it's said to be the largest such standing figure in all of Asia. In front of the Buddha is the 5-story wooden pagoda that Bruce Lee had chosen as the backdrop for the climactic battles in the film.
Thus, the idea started from there. He took some of the ideas he had been gathering about the levels of martial arts combat in the pagoda, and Kareem came out, and I believe that the first scenes that they shot were the fight scenes between Bruce and Kareem.
The first day's rushes, after we saw those, we had to slow everything down because we were moving too fast and it looked too jerky on the film, and we had to slow it down so the film could follow, so the camera could follow us. And people could see things, because we were doing things like we practiced it, and I practice with Bruce. We do several things in a split second, and the audience would miss the subtleties of what he was trying to do if we didn't slow it down.
Of what were to be his accomplices in the film, Lee wanted one to be slightly devious and antagonistic toward his character. This would create an interesting dynamic in the relationship between the two men, not letting the audience know whether or not Lee's partner was actually with him or against him. For the role of the antagonistic accomplice, Lee chose James Tien, an actor who had appeared with Lee in 2 of his previous 3 films in Hong Kong. The second accomplice was to be a strong but simple-minded martial artist. These would be character attributes that would allow for a different type of dynamic to occur between the accomplices as they fought their way up each level of the pagoda. Lee ultimately settled on Hong Kong stuntman Che Yun to play the role of this accomplice. It would be the first time these two had worked together. At the time of filming, the rest of Lee's accomplices had not been decided. Within the pagoda, Lee and his accomplices would have to battle upwards past 5 levels, each guarded by a martial artist of a particular style. The first level was to be guarded by Wong In-sik, who was to be portrayed as a master of a kicking style, Wong had worked with Lee before, appearing as one of his opponents in The Way of the Dragon. Lee had chosen his real-life senior-most student, Taki Kimura, to play the guardian of the second floor. According to Kimura, Lee wanted him to utilize praying mantis gung fu, as well as some elements of Wing Chun, both arts that emphasize infighting, use of hands predominantly, with kicks limited to below the waist.
And I think it was in October of 71, 72 in that era. He called me and said that he wanted me to be in the movies and in that movie. And again, I said, look, Bruce, I said, I got two left front feet, you know it and I know it, and there's probably 1,000 people over in Hong Kong that do it better than I can. And I said, just let me sit here and enjoy the fruits of your success. And because I said, you know me, I said, I don't need to be in that. And he said, no, he said, I want you in it. He said, I'm the technical director and the co-producer. He said, don't worry about it. So I reluctantly, for fear that he'd kick my butt if I said no at that point, I said, okay. He'd already sent me an airline ticket. But really, I think at this point in his life, I think he had transcended all the gimmicks that, you know, that are usually in these movies. And I think that he had gotten to that plateau where you could just simply do the simple, you know, normal things and yet create that excitement within that simplicity.
Lee selected another of his real-life students, Dan Inosanto, to be guardian of the third floor, as he was not only adept in Lee's art of Jeet Kune Do, but in addition was also an advanced practitioner in the arts of Kenpo Karate and Filipino Eskrima. Lee opted to have Inosanto employ methods from both arts, which he believed would add an exciting visual element to the film and serve to break up the unarmed combat sequences. Inosanto was also a brilliant exponent of the nunchaku, allowing Lee to film the first ever nunchaku battle between two opponents. Grappling or joint locking would also serve to add a fresh visual element to the fight sequences. For this reason, Lee settled on Korean Hapkido Grandmaster Ji Hong-jae, who at the time of filming was a 7th degree black belt in the art. Ji would be the guardian of the 4th level of the pagoda.
Andrews Air Force Base, I did their teaching time. Jun Lee, Taekwondo master Jun Lee, he have international karate championship. I be there like a demonstration. Then that time Jun Lee introduced me Bruce Lee. I showed, he looked at my technique, then he liked my technique. That's why he come to the Andrews Air Force Base. He learned the several techniques. Then he go back to the Hong Kong, he invited me.
Lee decided to have yet another of his students, Karim Abdul-Jabbar, play the role of the guardian of the highest floor of the pagoda. He fights with an unknown style, which symbolized the highest level of martial art. This unknown style was the essence of Jeet Kune Do.
I was at the top of the pagoda because you know, I was the most effective fighter, and I didn't have any style. And I was also in a place where my strengths were enhanced by the environment, so it was dark in there. I was supposed to be light sensitive. My eyes were light sensitive, and that was a problem for me. But other than that, I was an incredible human specimen, etc. That was the whole idea about it. And he started knocking out the panes in the walls, so that more light came in and I couldn't see, and that's when he got his advantage in the fight.
The fact that Lee's character in The Game of Death would be taking on advocates of different styles on each level of the temple was significant in a larger context than might be initially evident. For Lee was not just taking on the various exponents of particular styles, but the very notion of styles itself.
I think it's evident in The Game of Death how he planned to fight a person of a different style, a very precise style, on each floor of the pagoda, and show how he could fit in with anybody else's style, thus having no style of his own.
In the battle of the third floor, Lee's character makes use of a green bamboo whip. The whip represents flexibility, an attribute which Lee felt a martial artist must possess if he was to be successful in combat. Since combat, like life, is not predictable, Lee held that one must possess a pliable adaptability in order to change with change. Lee has his character dressed in a one-piece yellow tracksuit to symbolize no affiliation with any known martial arts style.
I think the wearing of the yellow tracksuit was an expression of how he felt about the martial arts, that you need not be dressed in a traditional uniform in order to be an effective fighter. That yellow tracksuit is something that's comfortable, it's flexible, you can move without restriction, and so I think that was why he chose that.
With his cast now firmly in place, Lee spends the next 3 months of his life, from August to October of 1972, putting his martial vision on celluloid.
Bruce was a perfectionist on a film set. He always choreographed all of his own fights in detail, writing them down, every movement, every single movement, rehearsing them endlessly with the stuntmen, and having many, many takes so that it was always just perfect. And Bruce was very aware of how camera angles worked in fight scenes. I visited him on the Game of Death set on more than one occasion. The children, Brandon and Shannon, and I were always welcome on the film sets, and we enjoyed going there because he was having a lot of fun with it. First of all, Kareem was his good friend, as was Dan Inosanto, and some of the other martial artists as well were his good friends. And he had worked with them many times in the past. As you know, Kareem was his student, Dan was his student and assistant instructor. And so he had a real fun time working with these fellows and constructing the fight scenes.
The results are 3 carefully crafted and meaningful sequences that resonate on many different levels, as well as the most graceful and dynamic presentation of the human form in hand-to-hand combat ever captured on film. What you're about to see has never been seen before in its entirety. It's the footage that Bruce Lee shot for the Game of Death, the takes he had indicated as the ones to be selected for inclusion in the film, and the dialogue he had written. The footage, like the film, is incomplete. Approximately 2 minutes of footage that represented the beginning of the film's finale have been lost to the ravages of time. In that missing footage, Lee's 2 allies, James Tien and Che Yun, come up the stairs ahead of Lee and enter into the 3rd level of the pagoda, the Hall of the Tiger. There they meet the Eskrima Master, whose habit is to beat out a teasing rhythm on his sticks prior to killing his adversary. Che Yun sets out to attack the Eskrima Master with a large, heavy club, but is quickly disarmed. The Eskrima Master then casts his sticks aside and battles Che Yun, whom he proceeds to render unconscious with a series of strikes and kicks, known in Kenpo karate circles as the Dance of Death. Now it is James Tien's turn to battle with the Eskrima Master. It is at this point that Bruce Lee's final never-before-seen footage for the Game of Death begins.
Do you speak any English?
Of course I speak English.
I hope you don't mind if we move our man so that the two of us will have more room to groove.
But have your men stay as far away from the stairway as possible.
You know, baby, this bamboo is longer, more flexible, and very much alive. And when your flashy routine cannot keep up with the speed and elusiveness of this thing here, all I can say is that you will be in deep trouble.
That we will have to find out.
I'm telling you, it's difficult to have a rehearsed routine to fit in with broken rhythm. You see, rehearse routines lack the flexibility to adapt. Surprised?
How do you like that?
How do you like that?
As you gentlemen know, red means danger. Therefore, I advise to you people not to step into this warning arena. If you want to go on living, stop here. Go back downstairs. Life is precious.
Yeah!
誒，你係我好兄弟，我讓你上先啦，祝你好運啊！誒，醒定啲啦嚇。
好，多謝。我上去啦。 화이팅! 화이팅! 화이팅!
螳螂嘅最高優點就係佢能將生死置於度外，心無一念，全心全意去對付外來嘅侵犯。
Little fellow, you must have given up the hope of living.
On the contrary, I do not let the word death bother me.
Same here, baby.
Then what are you waiting for?
呢個巨人越係身形高大，當我每次打中佢跌低時，佢龐大嘅身體就越捱唔起。睇佢個樣，實行疲勞轟炸。我已經好攰啊！唔係，海田，佢比你更攰。定下陣。
This tough son of a gun is wearing me out.
Why continue? Just let me pass.
You have forgotten that I, too, am not afraid of death.
来得！
搞掂啦，落嚟啦！
救命啊！
快啲啦！
You know, I've been categorized as a keeper of the grave up in Seattle, and I try to make it up to at least once a month. Oftentimes, during a month, I might go up to 4 or 5 times, depending on who comes in from, you know, other parts of the world or something like that. And I find that there are many, many people that come up to, they're not even martial artists. You would just normally expect that the people come up there in martial arts and they want to try to, you know, to have that, some of that ability rub off on them. But I go up there and I make it a point to talk to people when I see them up there. And oftentimes they tell me, well, I'm not even into martial arts, but I just came to try to have him have some of that inspiration of his come into my life, because obviously I'm in a place where I need something, you know. And personally, because of Bruce, I've been able to help several young people to find themselves, to get out of the drug scene and things like that. And I don't take credit for that. It's Bruce.
I mean, I get letters now, 27 years after he's been gone, from people who weren't even born when he was alive. And they're telling me how he has motivated them to be a better person, to be, to achieve their goals, to be in better physical condition, to live their own life from their own heart rather than just following or emulating somebody else. So it really does my heart good, and I think that Bruce would be smiling down to know that his work and his art have continued to benefit people all over the world.
There were some lines that expressed your philosophy. I don't know if you remember them or not.
Oh, I remember that. I said, this is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.